I love you.
This is Mike Hughes, and you're listening to Mike on the Mic. I don't know why that was a little delayed for about 2 seconds, but we're in here like swimwear, baby. You heard I'm joined by two legends, two Chi-Town enthusiasts, because Tony is technically in Indiana, but I will call ourselves enthusiasts. I'm with Tony Hollinsworth of Inside the Hoosier Mind and Rob Scott, the show that's hot with your boy Rob Scott from Rob's 2 Cents, and welcome to Mars. Rob Scott. I'm Mike Hughes, a.k.a. TheChi.Kid. We are sitting here tonight. It is February 28th. Get your froggy pants on because we got a leap day tomorrow. We're going to be leaping into an event that I hope is going to be one of the most historic off seasons in Chicago Bears history. We're going to be talking about the NFL Combine today, what we've heard from Ryan Poles. If you're here for draft analysis, if you're here to find out what 4-4 Malik Neighbors is running, you're in the wrong place. We're talking QBs only today. We're talking a little bit about Caleb Williams, a little bit of Justin Fields, really trying to get inside the mind of Tony and Rob, seeing where they're at right now as it pertains to the Chicago Bears and the #1 overall pick. But Rob, first, I want to start off with you, man. How we feeling? How was your day today?
It was crazy because Chicago weather is very bipolar. I mean, we was 75 degrees yesterday. People was outside queuing. We threw back on the slides. Everybody was talking about going to the lakefront. And then, damn it, Father Winter showed us that he's still here. And Chicago, with his bipolar self, decided to go to 25 degrees.
Horrible. And don't forget the tornado storm last night. In a span of 24 hours, it was summer, doomsday, and now it's winter again. So it was crazy. Tony.
Well, you know what I call Chicago, right?
What do you call it?
The next 15. If you don't like how this weather feels, give it about 15 minutes.
It's about the realest thing I've heard. About the realest thing I've heard. Tony, how was it in Indy yesterday?
Oh, we twins. We exact in the same boat. It was almost 70 degrees yesterday. It felt great. And then about 2:00 this morning, hell opened up and said, "What up?" It rained, it hailed, there was tornadoes, and then sure enough, it dropped all the way down into the 30s. And I swear these wind gusts were up in like the 30 miles per hour today. We were opening the doors at work. It's like slamming open. We're having to like fight to close it. It was nuts. And Rob, same thing here in Indiana. If you don't like the weather, give it like 5 minutes. I promise you it'll change to something different. I think that's just a Midwestern thing throughout. Don't matter. Illinois, Indiana, it's just Midwest.
Most definitely. But I will say this, man. They had a crazy lightning show last night. I remember my dad and I, man, he used to do it with his dad before him. They used to just sit out on the porch and watch like a rainstorm. Like everyone's inside bundled up, and they would just be standing out there. And he used to do that with me. So I try to carry that a little bit from time to time. It's got a little cool little lightning storm yesterday, which I thought was really cool. But we got a lot of stuff going on. We got a few storms brewing. We got a few storylines cooking up, heating up, everything going on throughout the NFL. I want to start off with Justin Fields. Before we talk about what Ryan Poles' comments were throughout the week, before we talk about Caleb Williams not participating in the Combine because he's too good for it, why would you need to do that only when you were exposed by every top 25 defense in 2023? I don't know. But we'll let Tony handle that in a little bit. But it's one of those things for me right now. From what we're understanding and where we're coming from is Ryan Poles went on record to even say No matter what the situation is, he wants to do right by Justin Fields. Now, there were rumors about Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers, but a few people that are close to me that work in Chicago media told me that that's just smoke and mirrors. They're not too deep into it. What I do understand right now is the Atlanta Falcons, the hometown kid, could potentially be heading back home in Justin Fields. They are presumably the favorite to land Fields if he is dealt. I want to ask both of you guys right now, because Fields went on the 33rd Team podcast with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Imanequis St. Brown as well. I've worked so hard to get his first name done. Shout out to me, because that man's first name is crazy. But, it's one of those things that I think could be a huge move, without even it being that huge of a move. If the Chicago Bears traded Justin Fields, I want to start with Rob, to the Atlanta Falcons for a second-round pick, and let's say, for the sake of argument, you have Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Justin Fields, and with the 8th overall pick, they bring in a Rome Odunze, they bring in a Malik Neighbors. How serious do you have to start taking that Atlanta offense?
I think you have to take them very seriously. If you kind of look last year, I don't have stats offhand, but Atlanta was making a little noise. They got some offensive firepower, and unfortunately, it was uncertainty at the QB play.
Good defense too.
Yeah, they have a very decent defense. I'm not gonna go say good. I'm gonna say decent.
They're pretty good.
They okay, So, but I will say this, bringing in somebody like Justin Fields, a guy who's from Atlanta, I think it'll bring a lot of excitement around Atlanta. They'll start seeing Vic 2.0. They'll start to let the dogs out, so to speak. No pun intended. And I think that that offense will get a great shot of adrenaline, especially with Fields' playmaking ability, along with Bijan Robinson. I think they become a two-head monster.
For sure. And I think one of the big things for me is the underutilization of Bijan in year one. I think is just going to give him a chip on his shoulder going into year two. Kyle Pitts is kind of in that weird window for me where, I do understand Arthur Smith was absolutely horrible. But I've also not seen a lot from him in the first couple of years. But tight ends do take a little while, but I'm curious to see what could potentially happen with that. Tony, where are you at right now? I want to switch up the question a little bit. Justin Fields gets Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and let's say one of these top 10 wide receivers with the 8th pick. Where does Fields finish the year as it projects from quarterback 1 in Patrick Mahomes to quarterback 32, which we'll say at this point Jordan Love. No, I'm playing. We're gonna say it's somebody who's horrible. We'll say Ryan Tannehill is QB 32.
Okay. I was going to put Daniel Jones. I'll put Jordan Love at 31.
I don't even think I put Daniel Jones.
Y'all better put some respect on Jordan Love, man.
Absolutely.
I'm not even a Packers fan. But
Never.
On now.
But I think with Atlanta, with all of those weapons and whatnot, I would honestly put Justin. I would probably put him at about 14 or 15. Like I think because he would finally have a good support system around him. You look at Atlanta's offensive line. Their offensive line is a massive upgrade over what Chicago has currently and what he's had his entire time being there in Chicago.
Yeah.
You have Bijan, who can be that pass catcher out of the backfield. He's a threat running the ball. He can be that ground and pound guy that Justin would need, as well as you have a guy on the outside in Drake London. They do still technically have Cordell Patterson, so you kind of have that gadget guy that you could potentially use, albeit he'd be coming off of an injury.
Right.
Kyle Pitts, I think, is going to have a bigger role now, especially since they released Jonnu Smith. And for whatever reason, Jonnu Smith was their bigger tight end target last year than Kyle Pitts was.
Saved my fantasy season on his back off waiver wires. Dude was a monster.
And you've got the young guy in Drake London on the outside being able to go get it too. And like you said, if they go get a Malik Neighbors, if they go get a Rome Odunze from Washington, if they get any of these big time wide receivers other than Marvin Harrison Jr., this is an Atlanta offense that this would really prove is Justin a franchise guy or not. Because at that point, you can't really get much better as far as better offensive line. You have honestly, and this is no slight to Chicago Bears because I love them, a better defense too. Because, I mean, you think about it, Atlanta's defense isn't terrible. Now, Atlanta does need a pass rusher. They ain't got the pass rush that Chicago has. But secondary and, backfield-wise, they're pretty solid because they got Jesse Bates. They've got
I do love
Oh,
Jesse Bates.
you got Jesse Bates. I'm trying to think of the other guy. I cannot think of his name off the top of my head. But overall, I think it would put Justin Fields in the upper half of the quarterbacks. I think it would also silence a lot of doubters because at that point, that's probably going to be some of the best talent he's been around since his days at Ohio State.
That's fair. I think that's very fair. I will say this though. I think you just disrespected the Bears defense. Just
Thank you, Mike. I didn't want to jump on.
I'm talking
you
top
love
5 defense right now in the Chicago
Okay.
Bears. I think they're right at 5. I'm not putting them in top 3. Rob and I kind of talked about that,
Yeah.
towards the end of the season. But from what we saw, bro, I mean, if Jalen Johnson's back in a Chicago Bears uniform, which I presume he will be, they said right now talks are going swimmingly, going very well. They're trying to meet that middle ground, which that ain't happening. Pay that man. You know what I mean? You got $80 million in cap space. You had $100 million last year. Pay that man. I don't want no
not to mention
3
you just
wide
let
receivers. Come on.
You just let Eddie Jackson go. And let's not forget that the Bears were the best rush defense in the league.
They were. The only thing that kind of worries me, and I don't know if this is attributed to the offense, struggling for a long time because of Fields' turnovers. They just weren't able to move the ball, or if it was Eberflus's calls. Though there was a couple game, the Broncos and the Browns in particular, where the Bears had it won.
Yeah.
And just because of a lot of offensive fumbles and whatnot, it was hard for that Bears defense to kind of keep up. And eventually, they bit, but they eventually broke.
I'm happy you brought that up though, because there was a comment that was made at the combine, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I made a TikTok about it. Some people said they agreed. Some people said they hate me and they want me to stop making content, which is completely fine. A view is a view. But no, in all seriousness, man, Matt Eberflus, who, by the way, I'm rocking with the beard. I think it looks fresh. I think he looks a lot better with the beard. Pause. But, I think he looks great. He kind of looks like a little car salesman when he's clean shaven. So he looks Chicago with the beard. I'm rocking with Flus. But with that being said, he made a comment saying we need a quarterback that's going to be good in end of game situations come in fourth quarter. Now, why I didn't like that comment is I've heard the narratives, not even the narratives. I've seen the stats. Justin Fields is horrible. Statistically, one of the worst quarterbacks in the fourth quarter. Now, you could say that's because of Luke Getsy. You could say it's because of drop passes. You could say that's fumbles, no line protection, whatever you want to say it is. It's perfectly fine. But I know for a fact that on the other side of that, Matt Eberflus led the league out of all coaches in most blown leads going into the fourth quarter in the NFL this year and last year. So for me, I hear you. I understand. But, sir, if that ain't the pot calling the kettle black, I don't know what is, because, man, it takes 2 to tango. Your defense gave up a lot of points against that crap-ass shoot of a Denver Broncos team that the week prior to playing us got dropped by 70. So how we lost that game, you could say what you want. Maybe Justin Fields fumbled the ball 6 times, but at the end of the day, you allowed that offense to score. And that's where I had a problem with it. I said, man, if you want to make that comment privately and you want to talk to Ryan Poles, hey, maybe Caleb's better in the fourth quarter. Maybe woo. Okay, perfectly fine. Don't go out there publicly and say that, because, man, Chicagoans are great at 2 things in this world. I say even 3. We're great at fashion. We're great at sports talk. But the biggest thing of all, remember everything like an elephant. Somebody deal you $5, I promise you, 20 years later, you see that guy walking down the street, it's over with.
Hey, Mike, can I add a 4th one?
Of course.
We petty as hell too.
Rob.
Come on. Yes. Well, and I'm not gonna lie too, as the head coach, how are you gonna say that about a dude that, whether he knows or not, obviously he and Ryan Poles are probably going to be talking about it and whatnot as far as who he wants to be the quarterback. If you do decide to go with Justin, if I'm Justin, the next time I see that man, I'm be like, what are you talking about? Like, oh, we need a quarterback that can, play all 4 quarters. Wait a minute. Like you said, if you want to say that to me privately, or at least to my face, by all means, you say what you got to say. We grown adults. You can talk to me man to man. Don't go out in public and say that to me and then just not expect me to not be salty with you the next time I see you.
Right. Like my thing is this. Like, so here's where I come as an athlete, even as a coach. I've coached kids in high school, and you have those real conversations. I'll let you know, yo, Isaac, your shit stinks. Get better. But what I'm not gonna do is not name drop you. I will never make a comment without name dropping the specifics in which I'm stating. I think it's very important. If he went up there and said, well, listen, I think Justin could improve in the fourth quarter. I think we worked on a lot of things, but I think towards the end, especially against Detroit, and, we saw it in 2022, we saw it in 2023, Justin blew the game away with fumbles. It just comes down to it. Against the Tampa game, what was Fields doing? He blew the game. That's really what it was. But I think at the end of the day, when you say we're looking for a quarterback that is better in-game situations going into the fourth quarter, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but it was the logistics of what he said. That's a problem to me, because if you want to sit down and say, well, Justin could have been better in the fourth quarter and we're going to evaluate that moving forward, I have no problem with it. But the way you said it, in which is you're looking for a quarterback that can do that, you're saying Justin's not that guy. So I don't know. I took it a certain way just because it came from the guy who's blown the most leads. I think it's very ironic. We talk about Mamba a lot on Welcome to Mars, and we talk about Kobe and Mike never asked you to do something they couldn't do. So don't come up here asking me to run a marathon when you ain't walked past the couch in 3 days. You know what I mean? You ain't got out your ass in a month. Like it's crazy to me. But
let's also give kudos to Fields as well for just nipping that in the bud, not coming out with a response. Because again, he could have came and said, okay, well, I'm looking for a general manager that can give me protection. I'm looking for a general manager that can get me playmakers. And we could have had a whole verbal battle going on. So,
well, Rob, here's the thing. That's the next conversation.
Yeah,
that ain't happening. If you check Justin Fields' Instagram today, that man's on a yacht. That man's on a boat he's not on a yacht. He's on a boat in Florida on vacation. He has unfollowed the NFL and the Chicago Bears. Tony, I'm gonna start with you. Your initial thoughts when you saw me throwing a tantrum when I saw Justin Fields unfollow the Chicago Bears. Where were you at with it?
I mean, I get it. As a Bears fan, you're like, wait a minute, what are you doing? Because you kind of freak out. You're like, okay, this is kind of the symbol of the end. You unfollow the team. We've seen a lot of guys do it. We've seen AJ Brown do it. We saw Kyler Murray do it. We've seen all of these big, NFL stars just delete everything of their team off their social media. And then, either they get traded, they get released, whatever the case may be. For Justin, if I'm Justin, I don't blame him. It's one of those you almost disconnect from social media because it's just so much more worth it to disconnect and not deal with the toxicity. You don't have the fans, you don't have even other players that are going to question you because like you said, as an athlete, if your brothers come up to you like, hey man, are you going to be on the team next year? I don't know. I don't really have an answer for you as far as that goes. And for Justin, is not that he doesn't have an answer. He just legitimately doesn't know.
Yeah.
And if we're man to man going on the field, it's like I don't want to make you a promise and then, oh man, actually they're giving me the boot. So for him, I take it as he's going to take vacation, he's going to enjoy his time off, he's going to mentally reset because it's one of those, I think you need it. You're coming at that turn point now. Everybody's starting to doubt you. He's had a long season, and honestly, and you guys could probably agree with me, I think the Bears did a lot better than what people probably expected them to be anyway. I mean, they went 7-10, which, some people may have had less. Some people, potentially had a more. I think I had them 8 or 9 wins potentially, so it wasn't too far off. But I wouldn't look too much into it as far as it being a bad thing because you got to think NFL fans are some of the craziest in the world because Pittsburgh Steelers fans are going to be trying to talk to him like, oh, Justin, come to Pittsburgh. Atlanta fans will be like, oh, Justin, come home to Atlanta. Look at everything you got.
Is in his chat right now. He's checking his DMs. Hey, bro, come to Pitt. I already see it.
Oh, you know it. Somebody's
I have done that myself a couple times.
Come back home to Chicago.
Message Justin Jefferson this morning, asked him if he needed a real quarterback. Just let him know. Let him know I could sling it a couple of yards, But no, man, I completely agree with you, and I want Rob's take, but mine is just really quick because I didn't have a thought on it really quick. I definitely over-exaggerated for Frankie's personal entertainment. But the way I saw it, at first I said, oh, no, it's over. It's Jover. We're done. It's wraps. We're about to get Caleb Williams. And then I went to his Instagram, Chicago Bears in bio. All the pictures of him and his teammates as a Chicago Bear still intact. I've seen, like you said, I've seen athletes do this before. Everything is wiped. Nothing is there that is sports related. Nothing is there with their previous teams. So I was like, all right, he kept the Bears there. He kept them in their bio. He also has ATL in his bio. I understand this is his hometown, but it just didn't sit right with me. It's the wrong time. It's the wrong time for that. You could quickly delete Chicago Bears and just leave ATL, and it's a whole new thing. But, I think, for me, it was just like, man, I got to get away. I worked at Julasco. I worked at Wrigley Field. I've worked so many jobs around the moon. Everybody always makes fun of me because I get fired or I quit. I'm literally Ice Cube of Friday. But with that being said, man, you come to the conclusion that, Rob, if I'm on vacation 10 days, 12 days, you think I'm calling my boss every single day and asking how the shop is doing? No. So if Justin's on a boat right now living his best life, you think he wants to go on his feet and see some cat who might take his job? Or hear some 14-year-old who's never picked up a rock tell you that he ain't a good football player? He don't want to hear that noise. Rob Scott, where are you at right now as it pertains to the unfollowing of the Chicago Bears and the NFL? Got to put in the NFL because it wasn't just the Bears. Justin made that clear.
I think he just needed a mental break. I mean, when you go through a season like he went through, where remember at one point in time, people were saying, "Hey, start Tyson Bagent
Who said that?
and keep Fields on the bench." So you got to imagine, with the physical duress he went under, constantly in fear for his life, not really having a great offensive line to protect you, and then you have to deal with the mental aspect after the game is over. Is Fields good enough? Do we start this guy who wasn't even drafted in Tyson Bagent, a guy from junior college? You know what I mean? Like do we go with Caleb Williams? Do we get more stock for this first round first draft pick? So it's like it's a lot that could just weigh on you mentally, and I'm happy for him. Sometimes you just have to step back away, and count your blessings. Hey, I'm an NFL quarterback. I'm able to go on a vacation. I'm able to be on the yacht, and get your mind away from things. Man, mental health is a real thing, man. And sometimes, just to release from it all, it's therapy. You know what I mean? So I don't blame him. I would have unfollowed everybody. Hey, if you calling me asking me, I don't want to talk to you right now. Like, come ask me about how Justin is doing. You know what I mean? So I feel him, and you heard the statement he said. I don't necessarily have to follow a girl on Instagram for me to be talking to her. You know what I'm saying?
That
And
was
I
crazy
felt that.
too. That was crazy too.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Rob,
sometimes keeping people out your business, keeping people out your business is okay.
Rob did not feel that. As speaking for Rob Scott,
No.
Rob did not feel that.
I'm talking, my wife knows. She knows. Her last name is Mrs. Scott. This had nothing to do
Rob
with
did not feel that. Rob was like, "What?
But no,
on Instagram."
Hey, one of the best things in the world, even for married couples, is to keep people out your business.
Yeah.
Yep.
100%.
And even Brady Quinn mentioned it earlier too. He said, "You know how nice it is to be able to just take a break from all social media for like a week." He said it's just super refreshing because you got to think, look how toxic social media can become when that's all you're dived into for so long, whether it's sports, politics, life, whatever. You'll have people that like Mike said, 14-year-old, never picked up a rock, never touched grass, nothing, will just come at you and tell you how much better they are and how terrible you are. It's like,
I mean, dude,
I don't need all that.
I mean, ask Cam Newton.
Yeah, but Cam was winning though. That's
no, I'm saying ask Cam Newton how toxic social media can be. Yeah, ask him. Not we know the fight was. I'm not gonna say we condone fighting, but it was hilarious. I mean, awesome. he pretty much beat up people without throwing a punch.
I want a quick statement. I want a quick statement, real quick. He wasn't super Cam because of his touchdown celebrations. It has to be reminded. He's super Cam because that man is a superhuman person.
6'5", 250, 60 pounds. Like my only thing with that was, if defensive backs and defensive ends couldn't take this dude down, what the hell did you think you were gonna do trying to tackle him?
Looking at him if I'm Mike. And you know what I will say? Tony actually mentioned it. Do you remember what you told me, Tony?
What's that?
He said, "Man, if you watch the video, his hat doesn't move the entire.
It didn't budge.
It doesn't. Does not move.
It's witchcraft. It's crazy."
I actually called the hat the Gandalf.
He looks like a pilgrim, or he looks like he's wearing that sorting hat from Harry Potter. That's what he's
looking like. One person say, "POV, Christopher Columbus coming to America." I said, "Oh, bro."
That man had on the Gandalf, boy, the Dumbledore.
It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. But listen, man, there's there's so many different ways we can get into this next subject because it's touchy. So I wanna spin a couple fan questions real quick because I think it's important. We got our guy Anthony Price from the AC.
AP.
Anthony's been following me, Rob, and Tony and the boys for a few years now. He has part one question. He has two parts of this question. He says, if the Bears keep Justin Fields next year and the Bears go under 500, will you regret not getting a quarterback in the draft? Part two, how long do you help Justin Fields until you give up on him? That's the question right there. I think the first part of your question is very key to the second part. What am I helping him do? Am I helping him just look like an average quarterback, or am I helping him take him to the Super Bowl? For me, before you guys, have any opinions on it, I think it's really simple. The second part is easy. If I'm helping him be average, that answers the first part of the question. We got to move on. If I'm helping him get to the Super Bowl, that could be a few years into it. You could see even Jalen Hurts today. Jalen Hurts last year versus this past year is two totally different guys. Sometimes you get positive, sometimes you get negatives. You kind of got to keep going with it until you get a roll of dice that works for you. Unless you're Patrick Mahomes and you just take whoever the fuck you want to the Super Bowl and they win a Super Bowl. So that's just that. But I think at the end of the day, man, I played this game with myself towards the end of this past season with the first part of your question because I watched CJ Stroud go absolutely bananas. And I understood the Bears could have got CJ Stroud. Rob and I talked about it. Tony and I talked about it. Why replace a OSU quarterback with an OSU quarterback? Well, the second one looks a hell of a lot better than the first one. So I didn't see it coming. Me personally, I thought he'd be a better passer, but I didn't think it'd translate that fast. So I think you could play that game with yourself all day long. I think the bigger question to me would be what quarterback is having that success on the other end of it. If Caleb Williams is a bust and Michael Penix is having success, I'm not mad that Ryan Poles didn't take him number one and get rid of Justin Fields. You know what I'm saying? So if Jaden Daniels or Drake May have success, I'm still not mad about it because we had number one. You got to think about it. This whole conversation is Caleb versus Justin, because that's what it's going to come down to at the end of the day. You know what I mean? And even for the Bears last year, it was Bryce Young versus Justin, but really it was CJ Stroud. So I'm not mad that CJ Stroud ended up being who he was because people didn't even have him going number one in the first place. Just like how Rob talked about the one day about, well, yeah, Patrick Mahomes is great, but look how many other teams passed up on him. Like if anything, the Bears should have took Deshaun. That's really where we were at, over Mitchell Trubisky. And either way, I'm happy that didn't happen. But but where are you guys at with that? Like, how long are you giving Fields right now, and what do you need to see in order to keep this train going?
You want to go first, Rob?
I can go first, and I would say this: my only problem and concern has been with people trying to evaluate Fields is that, to me personally, I don't think we've had a true chance to do that. Like, when you see somebody who's trying their hardest to get control of a game where, they can't even, get their offense situated due to the fact that they're in fear for their life and that they're running. It's like, how can you truly evaluate a quarterback if he has no protection and no playmakers? We saw improvement when you got him one playmaker. You get him DJ Moore, you instantly start to see, okay, maybe this guy has something. Cole Kmet started to elevate a little bit, and that was pretty much his go-to. If I can't hit more, I'm gonna try to hit Kmet. And I think you bring in one more playmaker and you actually give him at least 2.5 seconds in the pocket. I think now we can really evaluate Fields. So I say I go one more year. If it doesn't work this year, maybe it's just not in the cards for him. And you let him go and flourish somewhere else. But honestly, compared to the quarterbacks that are in the draft now, no disrespect to them, I don't see anybody that's significantly better than Fields. I just don't.
Yeah. And for me, so kind of the first part of it, if they keep him, and the Bears go under, will they regret not getting a quarterback in the draft? Here's the thing you have to remember too. We don't know what a quarterback's going to be until they play. Right. We had no idea if, we saw in college, Bryce Young looked great. We saw him go to Carolina. He ended up not looking great. Not necessarily all his fault. Carolina ain't got no weapons. CJ Stroud did really well. And I think CJ's is a little bit more of a testament to he had a better coach, albeit DeMeco Ryans is a rookie head coach, you notice it wasn't that long ago DeMeco Ryans was in the league and he was playing and he played for Houston. So if anybody knows how to motivate his players, if anybody knows what it's like to be a player, go to coaching, be a successful coordinator, and then come be a head coach and get the best out of his guys, it's DeMeco Ryans. The other thing that I see a lot of people do, and I even had a guy on my own podcast come in on say this about how Justin only has 10 wins and he has like 35 losses in his career. CJ goes to Houston, he gets 10 wins his first season, which is more than what Justin has got. A lot of that depends on where you go in the NFL. And I think a lot of people forget that. Look at how many first round picks that were great in college went to the Cleveland Browns and are now either out of the league, career backups, or something to that extent, because Cleveland did not give them the help that they need. Now, the second part of how long do you help Justin until you give up on him, I think that honestly depends on a lot of what they do with this draft. And I know we've talked about it. Do they stick with Justin? Do they potentially use the number 1 on Marvin Harrison Jr.? Do they, trade it back? Do they give a king's ransom to get more and kind of build up the Chicago Bears? If it's me, that's what I do. I build up more because, like Rob said, give him a true chance to truly be evaluated. You can be the greatest quarterback in college all you want. You go into a bad situation no matter what, you can only overcompensate that for so much.
Right.
And again, coaching has a big factor into that. Like I put in the group chat with all of us earlier, do we think Patrick Mahomes is the same Patrick Mahomes we see today if he doesn't go to Kansas City and he doesn't have Andy Reid with him? Is he the same quarterback?
I think he's Jay Cutler 2.0. Great arm talent. Probably just as annoying family. But I think at the end of the day, man, I tell you what, though, Jackson Mahomes ain't lasting in Chicago.
It's the truth, though, but it's the truth. You have to take that into consideration. How many coaches have Fields played with now? Is it 2?
This will be his second.
This will be his second, and this will be his third
coordinator. You get what I'm saying? So he has no stability. He's like a kid who's watched his parents divorce twice. It's like there's no stability in the household, so to speak. And you're asking this guy to create a miracle. That's essentially what you're doing.
You're asking him to create a miracle. You're asking him to create a culture. And because you think about it, as the quarterback, you're the de facto leader.
Yeah.
So, all the guys are going to come to you. Hey, what are we doing? Like, why is this different? What's different going to be about this system? So to kind of answer Anthony's question, honestly, I don't want to say give Fields just this year. I want to see, does he have progression? Is he getting better? If he gets better, then okay, let's kind of have that conversation. Do you extend him for a year? Do you tag him? What do you do potentially moving forward? But I gotta see progression. Even if it's something as you have a winning season for the first time. You don't necessarily have to go to playoffs, but have a winning season. Throw for like 3,500 yards. Throw for like 30 touchdowns. Something to show me, okay, we finally got you what you needed to be our franchise guy. Let's move forward from there. And to me, let's say it doesn't work. You still get everything there. You have a good O-line. You have the weapons. At worst, then, you're probably one of the most attractive free agency spots for another quarterback to potentially come in or get traded to and immediately become contenders again. Because now you have a young team. You don't necessarily have to pay for everybody up front. You're still going to have a good cap salary situation. And you can be dominant and you can be good for a few years.
And I think I have 2 points here that I think is really important because one pissed me off. It's in the comments, but it's okay. We're going to get to that in a second. But I think the big thing for me, we talk about rebuilds and we talk about quarterbacks going into certain situations. Like people have to remember Justin Fields didn't come into a rebuild. This was a last ditch effort from Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy to try to save their jobs. Khalil Mack, Allen Robinson, all these guys were still here in his first season. So that first season where he's coming off the bench in exchange of Andy Dalton and Nick Foles wasn't a true rookie season because everything was a debacle. It was a rotation of the 3 quarterbacks. Matt Nagy didn't know what was going on. Bill Lazor definitely didn't know what was going on. And we're at this point where going into year 2, where most quarterbacks like a Jalen Hurts acquires an AJ Brown, where most guys get better they actually got worse. They got significantly worse because you lost Khalil Mack, you lost Akeem Hicks, you lost a Kyle Fuller, and all these different guys who were on the team, and Allen Robinson, who maybe at the time wasn't the greatest, but he was definitely the full front of that offensive wide receiver room next to Darnell Mooney. And then Darnell Mooney takes a step back with the injuries. And, it's just unfortunate when you're going into year 2. Most quarterbacks are taken, hey, we already went through our rebuild. Now we got our guy, or we just started our rebuild. Now we're going to begin it. You already came into a situation where this was the established team that was the Mitchell Trubisky era, and you came in to close that chapter. And that chapter should have been closed a year prior before even going after Justin Fields so they could excel going into year 2. The second point, everybody's talking about, Justin Fields, fourth quarter stats, fourth quarter stats, this, and that. Listen, if you've ever played ball on any level, high school, peewee, whatever, you got your guys. Like my guys, James Morgan, I call him Morgan Street because that man's about a block, a mile radius, and he can get a catch radius. He can grab it. He's in there. Got my boy Lapka Lake, Kevin Lapka. You have him as a DB or a wide receiver, anything in that vicinity, in the pond, drowning, it's gone. That's what it is. You go to your guys. Those are the guys you need to lock up towards the end of the game. For the Chicago Bears, to Rob's point, DJ Moore is that first guy. I saw DJ Moore get double teamed more than anybody I've seen in the Bears history in a long time. I mean, we're even to the Brandon Marshall days. They understand there's no Alshon Jeffrey on that other end. There's no Martellus Bennett on that other end. Shout out Cole Kmet, but he spent a lot of that time blocking to help out Justin Fields and the offensive line that wasn't producing. You got guys like Lucas Patrick who during pregame warmups tears his Achilles or breaks his elbow or whatever 500th injury he has on the year because that man's made of glass. Got Cody Whitehair, who all power to him. Ben's here over 7 years, all pro, a Pro Bowl center. I love what he did for Chicago, but at the end of the day, just like Eddie Jackson, the time was up. You know what I mean? Long overdue. You got to go. And that's just what it was. So I understand the fourth quarter stats weren't great. I'm not going to sit up here and say they were. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I saw Justin make a lot of moves where I'm just like, bro, get the ball out. You know what I mean? Don't be a hero. Don't be.
But it's hard to do that if your receivers are not creating separation.
100% it is.
Like receivers not creating separation. And hey, again, you're trying to ask this guy to create a miracle. I've only seen one quarterback so far throw the ball and catch, and that was Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
Okay. So that's just what it boils down to. You're asking him to do too much with nothing.
Right.
And that's how this guy has a 200-yard rushing game. Because he's like, I got to do something.
Right. You do get to that point, though, and Tony and I have talked about it a lot, where it's like, you're going to hurt yourself. And it's like, at some point, you got to look at yourself and say, nah, bro, just throw that one away. You know what I mean? Like, I understand that you want to get that first down. You want to show how much you fight for this team. But as sure as the sun is coming up, Tony Hollinsworth is watching college football, and he saw the same thing I did in that Clemson game where my man did not have to break every single one of his fucking ribs in that game. It just didn't have to be done.
You talk about my boy.
But that's the aggression that Justin Fields has in his game. And unfortunately, that's why you lose the national championship, because Justin isn't the best version of himself. I'm not saying Justin Fields was the fault there in that game, but I promise you, if he didn't have a broken hip and 6 broken ribs, he probably plays a lot better in the national championship.
But let me tell you this, though. How well do the Chicago fans continue to – because, with us, sometimes everybody in Chicago is not watching football the way that somebody who knows the game watches, right? So how far do you think he goes away if he comes out on 6 straight possessions, and out of those 6 possessions, 4 of them he thrown away?
Well, I'll tell you,
you're going to start to hear the boos. You're going to start to hear the whisper. I mean, what he's basically trying to do is do exactly what we're saying, and that's create nothing out of something.
And I'll tell you,
I agree with you both. I agree with you both. It's a recipe for disaster because that's how you end up injured, but also just trying to understand his psyche. He's thinking, okay, how long can I get away with just continuously throwing the ball away?
We've seen, how many times have we seen, really quick, Derrick Rose? Hey, Derrick came back way earlier than he should have just to prove a point. And then what ends up happening? So for me, it's Justin, fuck that. Unfollow all the fans if you have to. Ignore all of it. Health is wealth, and health is what's going to get you paid in this.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, that I think plays a major factor, and I don't know if a lot of people think about this or not, who has Fields really gotten a chance to learn behind as far as veteran quarterbacks that have come into the league? Nobody that really fits his skill set.
Nobody.
You know, you look at Tom Brady. Who did he get to learn from when he took over? He got to learn from Drew Bledsoe and all the years that Drew Bledsoe played in the league. He got to learn from him. Who did Patrick Mahomes get to learn from? Alex Smith, albeit, you know, some people kind of have a love-hate with Alex as far as whether or not he was a bust. His career got revived by Andy Reid. So he got to watch him and how he played. He could even go back to Donovan McNabb days with, you know, Andy Reid and Philly if you want to look at, okay, where's a big, strong, athletic quarterback with a good arm that can be mobile and lead a team to multiple championship appearances like Donovan McNabb. Justin hasn't had that. Who's he had?
Come on, say it, Tony. You forgot one more.
Who's that?
Say it, Tony. Who did Jordan Love learn from?
Oh, yeah.
No,
I'm not giving him that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Never.
Tony, I will say, I thought Rob was going somewhere else with that. You know, we can even look at what the Baltimore Ravens did in 2018. They brought in Robert Griffin III for Lamar Jackson, and they understood the assignment of saying, hey, listen, RG3, we're not asking you to play. We just need you to remind this kid that health is wealth and how to do what he needs to do, but in the most efficient way possible, in the way that you couldn't. So I think I definitely agree with you, but I also kind of agree with Rob that maybe he's onto something there. But we're not gonna.
I gotta give Tony a hard time.
But I will say,
I know you do.
Before the end of the season, he gonna look and say, "Okay, Love is decent."
Absolutely not. No, this season's gonna prove it. I promise you, this season's gonna prove it.
I will say this, to Tony's point, I think we've already seen the proof that Aaron Rodgers did not help Jordan Love whatsoever. I think that Aaron Rodgers said, F that kid.
I don't think he had direct, like, I don't think he.
But he learned from watching, I would say, right?
Which is why I have a problem when they call an injured person a rookie of the year, because it's like, are you truly a rookie when you get to be around the team? But that's a different conversation.
And honestly, in all honesty, much because you know I don't like Rodgers and I don't like Love. Rodgers gave Love gave him the same treatment Brett Favre gave him.
Yes, he
was
did.
Like, I'm not trading you. What? No, you listen.
Andy went to the Jets.
Vikings next. But nah, man, listen, there's something I do want to talk about today, though, because I had to go on the Give Us a Shot podcast. Shout out to him, Fox Sports Philly. We're doing a lot of
cooking, by the way, too, Mike. You've been cooking.
Thank you, sir. I'm trying. You know, they got great guys over there, bro. They're helping me. But with that being said, you know, I'm going on there, asking me about Chicago, whoop-de-whoop, you know, what goes on your pizza, tavern style, deep dish, which, by the way, if you're from Chicago and you say you eat deep dish, you a liar. But with that being said, you're asking about Justin Fields and Caleb Williams. And I'm like, bro, I even called Tony this morning. He didn't answer, but I called Tony this morning. I wanted his synopsis on it. I was like, man, listen, Justin Fields is 10 times better in college than a Caleb Williams. Because here's what I had a problem with. I want to set the scene for you guys. Now, I'm listening to ESPN 1000 this morning, dropping someone off to work. I'm like, man, listen, I hate that they compare Justin Fields' NFL career to Caleb Williams in the Pac-12. It's basically comparing the big dogs on the biggest stage to the puppy dog cupcake league that doesn't even exist at the collegiate level anymore because no one cared about seeing Utah win the Pac-12 championship every year. They got rid of it, so it doesn't matter. So I look at the stats. I go, I'm going to paint you this. In 3 seasons, from 2019 to 2021, Justin Fields had 5,701 passing yards, 67 passing touchdowns, 9 interceptions, a 68% QBR, 1,133 rushing yards, 19 rushing touchdowns, 2 Big Ten championships, a Heisman nominee, a 20-2 record. One of those came in the national championship. The other was another playoff game, never lost in the regular season. And he went to a national championship. So I said, all right, 5,000 yards passing, 1,000 yards rushing. I looked at Caleb's. I go, only 3,000. I go, oh, wait. That was just in 2023. So then I started doing more digging. Caleb Williams, Rob Scott. In case, I don't know if you were following it the way I wasn't following it because I was unaware. Caleb Williams from 2021 to 2023 doubles Justin Fields' passing yards. 10,082 passing yards, 93 passing touchdowns, 27 rushing touchdowns, a 66.9% completion percentage, 14 interceptions, 0 Pac-12 championships. I hold that to you. A 24-10 record, and a Heisman winner in 2022. Tony, Rob, my big thing here is when you look at it statistically, whether it's the Pac-12, the Big Ten, I don't care, because even guys like Patrick Mahomes came out of the Pac-12. It does not matter to me. But with that, I'm looking at the stats. If today, the year is 2021, I want an unbiased opinion from both of you. We just got rid of Mitchell Trubisky. Say Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus. Everybody on the roster is the same. The only difference is Mitch Trubisky. He's gone. It's over. Money Mitch era is done. There's 2 rookies in this class. We have the number 1 pick, Justin Fields at Ohio State with the same numbers as today versus Caleb Williams at OSU with the same numbers today. Who would you take coming out of college, ignoring what Justin's been able to do at the NFL level? Because I look at these numbers, 10,000 yards, over 110 touchdowns from Caleb entirety with only 14 turnovers. Rob, it's hard not to look at Caleb and say he clears Justin Fields statistically.
If you're thinking just numbers, see when I think about somebody that look at just numbers, I think about people that don't watch the game.
Right.
I think about people that goes when the game is over with. They don't look at the point. They don't even bother to look at highlights. They just go based on, oh, this guy statistically is better. But you have to watch the game to really understand the psyche and the mentality and the toughness of a player. What I would tell you, Mike, is I would still go with Fields, and I don't just say that to win my argument or because I actually have, in hindsight, seen Fields play for the Bears. I would say Fields due to one game, and that was the game against Clemson. The game against Clemson, which he got completely injured, and he came out and he showed grit. Remember, this is the reason why he made the Sports Illustrated cover. The man is out there with hurt ribs. He's out there, can barely breathe, and he's out there still making plays for an Ohio State team that went on to win that game.
Mhm.
I look at how Caleb Williams kind of faltered against Notre Dame. Like Notre Dame came out there, they came with a game plan, they put the hurting on that boy, and they made him ball up in the corner.
Right.
For that reason alone, I will go with Fields because when the shit hits the fan, excuse my language, and we all know it hits the fan, who's gonna be that guy to stand up to be a leader? And I think to me personally, Fields can lead men probably better than Caleb could.
Most definitely. Tony, where are you at with it?
No, I mean, I agree. And I say that because, and I know we've talked about it, Caleb's inability to overcome adversity is where I have a problem, saying that Caleb would do better overall. And I say that because this past season, not just because of what Rob said with the fact that Notre Dame dropped 48 on him. Utah dropped 34. They were able to beat Cal by 1 point because they dropped 50, but Cal dropped 49. They lost. Washington dropped 52 on them. Oregon dropped 36, and then UCLA dropped 38. He hasn't. The only time Caleb has ever had a comeback win was the game when Spencer Rattler was struggling.
Which, by the way, Spencer Rattler is horrible.
Yes. He filled in for Spencer Rattler. He went 5-2 for them in his time at Oklahoma there. Keep in mind, there was still a quarterback controversy there with, do we go with Spencer? Do we go with him or not? And one thing I do want to throw out there as far as a quick fun fact, one of the games that Oklahoma barely won, they beat Brock Purdy-led Iowa State by 7. You want to know what Caleb Williams' overall passing record was against Iowa State, a team that is not generally known for, being collectively as a team great?
That team is Brock Purdy only.
He went 8 for 18, 44% completion, 87 yards, 1 passing touchdown, and an interception.
To be fair, though, I will say this. Justin Fields did not look great at Georgia either. Guys in their rookie years, even Joe Burrow at Ohio State, which is crazy to even say. Joe Burrow went to Ohio State and they played Dwayne Haskins and company over him. God rest Dwayne Haskins, but I'm just saying in hindsight, God damn. But
here's where I'd make that argument, though.
Okay.
This is when Oklahoma is 10-1. So it's not like it was one of his first games. Like, he had a couple games under his belt. So it's like, okay, you kind of got to learn a little bit.
For sure.
But no, like we've pointed out, I don't think Caleb Williams is a bad athlete. I know everybody says that he's potentially Patrick Mahomes 2.0, which to me is kind of crazy because when you put 2.0, that means that you're better And we can't say if he's better than Patrick Mahomes or not.
You take it that way? I don't really take it that way.
I think
kind of take it that
he
way.
has some Mahomes-esque
It's
type
qualities.
qualities. Like, I
Right.
mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want people to watch us on Mike's show and think that we're against Caleb. Like, I think
Right.
he's a hell of a quarterback. I mean, at least
Say,
in college,
yeah.
he's had some plays where I'm like, wow, that was
Right.
okay. This kid might be
And
better
to
than I
Rob's
think.
point, Rob said this on Rob's 2 cents, and I thought it was months ago, but I remembered it. Rob said, "I am no hater. If Caleb Williams takes the Chicago Bears to the Super Bowl, damn right, I'm celebrating on Soldier Field
Mhm.
Drive. Like that's what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're not haters whatsoever. I think we just understand the situation in which we're in. We're very comfortable with the other cat we have in the room.
Yeah,
Right?
I just feel that, you know, when it comes to mentality, I think that plays a huge role in being a quarterback, especially in the NFL. Think about it. One of the things that people don't talk about with Tom Brady, they talk about, you know, his arms, accuracy, and everything. But one of the things I think that goes overlooked is mentality. Like
Yes.
I had a thing where I called him Psycho T. When you saw him throwing iPads and things
Mhm.
over there, Psycho Tom was a real thing. When he's yelling at dudes twice his size, saying you better be there and you better block. I bet not get
Yep.
touched. You know,
Mhm.
you gotta have that type of mentality. And to me, Justin Fields, I feel like mentally is stronger than Caleb Williams. Like I've seen Caleb. Like remember before the Notre Dame game, Caleb Williams was like one of the in the top conversations for being a back-to-back Heisman winner.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
he completely fell off the map after that Notre Dame game. And I think that has something to do with mentality. It's like, you know, when that fire gets real hot, can you stand the heat or do you get the hell out the kitchen?
And I
And
think
to me, I think he gets out the kitchen.
for me, Tony kind of broke it down for me in a different kind of way when I was on inside the Hoosier mind, and we were really breaking down egos. And I think I've seen the highs of Caleb Williams and I've seen the lows of Caleb Williams, and I don't like how he responded in either of them. In the highest of the
I do.
highs, this is all over the newspaper. He's all over advertisements. He's in commercials doing endorsements, and that's fine. Get your money, But
Crazy ego though.
when
Mhm.
when you have a Heisman year and you win a Heisman, and then the next year you have that drop off in percentages in what you're able to do against top 25 defenses in the Pac-12 and just top 25 defenses in all of the NFL, or in college football, you start to have those real conversations of how much work did you put in this offseason? You kind of acting like you already made it. You climbed the mountain. You're a 6-time Super Bowl champion, and now you're the GOAT. Like you kind of start to feel yourself a little bit. Now, when your shit starts to stink, oh man, now I'm crying to my mom. Now I'm doing this. Now I just want to go home and pet my dog. And it's like that stuff's cute. But I will say I've seen the highs and the lows. I've seen Justin Fields go to a national championship. Did not change his composure whatsoever. I've seen Justin Fields win 3 games in a single fucking season and look absolutely horrible. Did not change his composure whatsoever. Did not make excuses. Did not make any sort of storyline or fabricate anything to why he didn't have success. No drops from Darnell Mooney, Tyler Scott, Bayless Jones, Chase Claypool, none of them. He didn't blame any of it. I mean, running the ball 6 straight times with Luke Getsy against the Green Bay Packers in Week 18. Was that why we lost the game? Yeah. Is that what Justin Fields said to the media? No, of course not. And I think that's really where I'm at with it is, if you're an athlete and you're watching this on TikTok right now, or you're watching this on Rob or Tony's or myself's Facebook, YouTube, if you're an athlete of any type, or even if you are a part of a job or anything, a friend group, I don't care if you're playing Hell Divers 2 and somebody's making call out signals and you have a specific role, that's completely fine. But if you're not willing to go to war for the guy next to you, a problem, especially when the guy next to you is the guy leading the charge at QB1. And for me right now, what I've seen from Justin Fields, I've been scouting this kid, watching him since I was 15 years old. That's no cap. Tony knows. I mean, we're the same graduating class. Me, him, Trevor Lawrence, Tyler Hero, Zion Williamson, John Moran. I've been watching those guys since the beginning, especially Hero in the Wisconsin days. Like that brother was the coldest white boy in the Midwest. And to get knocked it off topic, but you see Justin Fields, and since the beginning, since he was on the Netflix series QB1 Beyond the Lights, I mean, it was insane to watch him work. Insane to watch his military grit father just install that into his brain that we do not make excuses. We demand straight A's. I remember he told the story. He didn't have straight A's in a math class, and his dad shaved his head. I mean, he made him go to school with a shaved head because he said, if you want to look stupid, you're going to look stupid. That's just what it is. So I'm not saying that Justin Fields should be QB1 because he has a good mentality. I don't care if you're the toughest dude in the room. If you suck, you suck. But I've seen Justin Fields break single-game NFL records set by Michael Vick. I've seen Justin Fields set NFL records by some guys like Lamar Jackson and Michael Vick. So to have that success and see Lamar win MVP, 2 MVPs, Rob, I can't sit here and say that this formula doesn't work.
And to your point, I've seen. My bad, Tony. Let me say this, and then it's all yours. To your point, Mike, I've also seen Justin Fields be a leader even when things wasn't going his way. I mean, they were talking about a guy in Tyson Bagent possibly taking his job, and the way that he was there to be a voice to Tyson Bagent, you know, to cheer him on in his wins, and you can tell that the team cradled around that. You know what I mean? Like, that's not an easy thing to do, to watch somebody be possibly speaking about, you know, making history on your watch.
Right.
You know what I mean? And for you to be like, well, you know what? If it's gonna better the team, it is what it is. You know, remember they continued to start Bagent even when he got hurt. My bad, Tony. Go on.
Yeah. No, you're good. I wanted to ask y'all both kind of a quick question because it'll lead into my point. Do y'all? We could probably agree Lincoln Riley is one of the best offensive-minded college football coaches that is in the league right now, right?
For sure.
So he was able to do pretty well with Caleb at Oklahoma. He got him to a Heisman season his second year, you know, his first starting season in the Pac-12 at USC. Same guy, same quarterback, same team. You're only able to go 7-5. You lose 5 out of your last 6 games with one of the best offensive college football coaches in the game that we have today currently, and you can't overcome that. That's kind of my thing where I think mentality-wise, I struggle with Caleb, because if you can't do that with one of probably the greatest offensive minds in college football in the game today, and you can't get it figured out, and if you lose a couple games, no big deal. You lose a couple games, that just happens. And again, we've seen it. We saw it for the last 3 years when he was there. Alex Grinch was his defensive coordinator. Alex Grinch can't stop a wet paper bag from holding anything.
Yeah.
You can't rebound with that. Like much to Mike's point, that makes me really wonder how much work, how much dedication are you really putting into the game? Because you have all of that. You still have a super talented USC team, and y'all were rolling first few weeks of the season, but you all of a sudden can't get it back together. You can't correct it. That to me is a problem.
I will say
Great
this.
point, Tony.
I want to counter it just a little bit because I'm also not a Caleb Williams hater, and sometimes I feel like I'm projected that way because I'm such a JF1 fan, QB1. But with that being said, you know, I heard you talk about what the defense was able to do for Caleb Williams, and it didn't sound like they were able to do much. You know, you're looking at an Iowa State team, you know, against Oklahoma that was going tick for tack with them, and it's like that's a problem. You know what I mean? And then especially at USC, that defense wasn't great whatsoever. And then to be completely honest, this might be my lack of knowledge, and if that is the case, that's completely fine. But I couldn't name 2 wide receivers at USC right now, and I honestly couldn't even name one. All I really knew going into this year. Could you name any wide receivers out of USC right now?
Not off the top of my head, no.
And that's a problem for me when you talk about a guy who's coming off of a Heisman year. They understand what Caleb Williams wants to do. So take away whatever weapons he does have, which are probably very limited, especially at USC. It's not like a situation where Justin Fields has Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Now, he obviously didn't have all of them at the same time, but the conversation is teams like Ohio State, teams like Alabama, teams like Clemson back in the day were able to have such a hot commodity of weapons for their quarterbacks. I think Caleb was kind of at a disadvantage going into this season because he had that target on his back of being a Heisman winner, on top of having Cliff Kingsbury in his ear, which may have benefited him, may have not have. But in all seriousness, though, I think that defense wasn't great whatsoever. And I think when you look at the weapons, if unfortunately, whether it's my knowledge being bad or not, if I can't name one wide receiver of a Heisman winner quarterback that he played with, that's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, Rob, who's the point guard of the 2018 Chicago Bulls?
The point guard?
Took too long. That answers my question.
I had to think about that. It was like do do do.
You know what I'm saying though? Like, if I can name you Caleb Williams' offensive supporting cast and his weapons, how can you truly judge his game in 2023?
Here's my only kind of counter to that. And again,
Please,
it's not dismissing that, because
for
again,
sure.
you're going to take a step back if you don't have as good of wide receivers, or kind of the same thing with draft picks. They might be labeled as 5-star prospects, they might be labeled as 4 stars. If they don't live up to the potential, they just don't live up to the potential. That is what it is. If you're supposed to be that guy at quarterback, though,
Mm,
to a point, you should be able to make it work. And much like Justin has found out, and I think somebody made a meme of it as a joke, because I don't think Justin actually said this when he came to the Bears. He's like, most of these guys wouldn't make Ohio State's roster. Like, if you're
I
Caleb
think he
and
did say that, but it got taken a little
like
bit
out
out
of
of proportion.
context,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
He was just
But
saying Ohio State is very legit.
yes. But like, if, okay, say hypothetically, like Caleb goes to New England,
Right,
what does New England have for him to work with? And again, I'm not expecting him to, do absolutely everything with nothing. But that's kind of my point, though. If you're supposed to be that guy, you should be able to work with it a little bit. Not I'm not expecting you to, blow the world away with records. I'm not expecting you to, get, 12 wins out of this. But you should be able to do something if you're that guy, especially in an offensive system like Caleb was in, the same system for the last 3 years. These wide receivers should be able to work with that, and he should. And again, what are you doing in your off time? Are you working with your wide receivers? Are you trying to build that chemistry and that connection with them to try and get better, to keep it close?
right.
Because when they started facing better competition, it was a totally different ball game.
For sure. And I think like, again, the pushback, we can go back and forth all day, I feel like. But I even look at Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech, amazing quarterback mind, amazing offensive mind, and Cliff Kingsbury. Again, can't name 2 wide receivers for Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. That's a
Mm-hmm.
problem. And they weren't able to win ball games. Now, Patrick did have a solid career, but it wasn't any different than, I feel like, Caleb Williams of 2023. And I think that's really my big thing right now is you could have great minds in the room. Look at Nick Saban this year, though. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Nick Saban's a great mind, and they shit the bed because they had horrible quarterback play. And by the time
Yep.
they figured it out, it was a little too late, and it still wasn't good enough. So I think there's a lot of levels to this, man. But we got a couple more
Can,
questions before we get out
can,
of here. Oh,
can I
wait.
make one more? Can I make one more counter, though? Because
Oh,
I
Tony.
gotta make one more counter.
Oh,
Just one. Just one.
I know. I love
Uh,
it.
Other than Patrick Mahomes, can you name one player that Cliff Kingsbury has made successful, collegiately or NFL? Can you
It's
name me one player Cliff Kingsbury made successful?
Caleb Williams and Patrick Mahomes.
But
Listen,
Caleb was already successful before he got there.
but again,
And Patrick got successful because he was with Andy.
that's fair. That's fair. But I will say, at the end of the day, I'm going to ask you this with a counter Who did Phil Jackson make successful before Michael Jordan? I can't
There
just
we
be
go.
mad at you because this was your first time having success. When you hot, you hot. That's just what
Right.
happens. If Rob
Right.
Scott gets 1,000,000 views on a video tomorrow, I ain't gonna be like, but what did he do yesterday? Hey, Rob's hot right now, though. That's just what
Right.
it is. You know what I mean? So
Right.
at the end of the day, I think that's what it comes down to. Shout out Rob Scott. But no, man, we got a couple more. First, I want to ask whether it's Caleb, whether it's Justin, when do you think for either which one of you guys want to go first? When do you think we're going to have an answer? Around this time last year, it was around this time. It was between, I believe, this week and next week to when we traded number 1 for DJ Moore and multiple picks. When do you think we'll know whether Justin Fields is the guy or whether we're going with Caleb?
I don't know. I would say this because you don't necessarily. They can still go get Marvin Harrison Jr. with the first pick.
Of
Mhm.
course. And
So
and how we, Rob, really quick, how me, you, and Tony made it an hour and 3 minutes into this before anyone uttered the word Marvin Harrison Jr., it rattles me. It scares me because you know how much I want Marvin. So it's unfortunate, but please continue, please.
they keep if they keep the number 1 pick and they get Marvin, we don't know because right now if I'm Ryan Poles, I'm keeping everything close to the chest. This is like a poker hand I'm looking at, and I know for a fact I'm about to get the full house, and I'm just gonna buy my time. Everything is in the Bears' favor right now because number 2 and number 3 in the Commanders and in the Patriots,
Just as
we
good.
know they're going for quarterbacks. They
Mhm.
are going to go get a quarterback, and we have the 9th pick. So and we got cap room. So right now, if I'm Ryan Poles, I'm actually loving making teams sweat right now because I think other teams know, man, the Bears are a move here and a move there to once again
Mhm.
becoming the monsters of the Midway.
Yeah.
I honestly think we will find out 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today exactly, because that's March 13th. And for anybody that don't know, March 13th at 4 p.m. Eastern is when free agency opens up.
Woo!
To me, much like to Rob's point, I think Ryan Poles and the Bears, if you're smart, you wait and you play it out. The reason being is because once free agency happens, then you're going to have the bidding wars. Then you're going to have probably a lot more trades happen. You're going to have signings and maybe even sign and trades happen then. If I'm the Bears, I'm going to wait and see. Okay, who does Washington go and get in free agency because they have a ton of cap space? They need a ton of help. Who does New England go and get because they have a ton of cap space? They need help. Who does Pittsburgh go and get because they're the favorites to potentially land Russ? They're favorites to potentially land Justin. Who does Atlanta go get? Do they go get somebody in free agency to try to bring in? Once that dust kind of settles, then you're going to see, okay, who's the really needy teams that either A, missed out, B, didn't offer enough money, or C, they don't really have a backup plan because they figured, oh, hey, we're going to get this guy for sure. So then you can sit there and say, all right, free agency's kind of done with for the most part. Everybody's got who they wanted to get or able to get. Oh crap, we don't really have a plan. Hey, Chicago, what can we give you to potentially move up? And Ryan's probably already taken those phone calls. I know I've seen a few reports on social media. His phone's ringing nonstop. And if I'm Ryan, that's a great thing that my phone's ringing nonstop because you have that option. But I think it happens 2 weeks from today because honestly, why try to rush it? Why not only give teams a chance to, get the number one pick now? You may not have to give up as much to get it, but you can do that and you can go build your team through free agency. If I'm Ryan, now go let teams build in free agency. Then you get the teams who are kind of sweating the bullets like, oh crap, now what do we do? They're going to give you that little bit of extra. Maybe they give you a little bit more to potentially get Justin if that's the route they decide to take. Maybe Justin goes from, an early second rounder to you're kind of a late first rounder, or if you trade back, like maybe we can give that guy for Justin because we think Justin's worth at least a late first round pick.
Yeah, I
And
think.
and Mike, here's one more thing that I think a lot of shows are not going to talk about. Bill Belichick ain't there no more, and New England is desperate.
Yes,
I think so.
and they're sitting at number 3.
And
number 3 ain't a bad spot.
Number 3.
Yeah,
because you got to think Washington's more than likely going to take a quarterback too. New England's going to take a quarterback. Marvin Harrison Jr. could still go to Chicago even with the number 3 overall pick.
Oh, most definitely. And I think one of the big things for me, I think we're going to continue having these conversations throughout all of free agency and really just breaking down, what the future of the team looks like and what we're going to be able to do. I think kind of like Tony, instead of 2 weeks, I say 1 week. College Pro Day is March 7th. So I think from March 6th to March 10th, I think that's when you find out whether Justin Fields is being traded or the Chicago Bears will be keeping the number 1 overall pick and maybe keeping Justin Fields. Who knows what they're going to potentially do? Maybe they have Justin run for the first year and have Caleb run for the second. We'll see what potentially happens. But with that being said, we're going to have one last final vote. 3 men on a pod who have nothing to do with nothing, just talking that ish. I wish Randy was here because Randy's great at saying ish. Let's talk about it though, man. I'm gonna start off with mine. I'm taking Justin Fields as QB1 in 2024 and beyond. Rob Scott, who you taking?
In the words of my boy Drewski, I've been standing on business. And I've been standing on business this whole time. I don't care what kind of propaganda the media tries to give me. In the words of all my fellow Chicagoans who said it loud and clear at Soldier Field, we want Fields.
Sir Tony?
Yeah, I'm going Justin. I say you trade that number 1 overall pick, you get a king's ransom for it, and you build that Chicago Bears team to the best potential that it can be as far as on paper goes. You give Justin everything you can. If it don't work out, you can always draft somebody else. And if it don't work out, you got one heck of a team for a quarterback to come into and potentially make an immediate impact.
For sure. And you got to think about it too. Here's my perspective. Going with Justin, 1, I want Marvin Harrison Jr. 2,
yes,
I think the biggest thing for me is we would have, let's say we trade 1 to 2. and we get Washington's number 2 this year, Washington's number 1 next year. Whether that's the number 1 overall pick or not, the Bears will have their own first-round pick, the Carolina Panthers first-round pick, and they will have the Washington first-round pick of 2025. So if I want to fuck around and say I want the number 1 overall pick in 2025, I could trade all 3 of them damn first if I really wanted to, if it was that bad of a situation. Now, the quarterback class next year, but we'll see what happens. But with that being said, man, this is Rob Scott.
Hold on. Hey, Mike. Hey, Tony. Hey, since he got who they, New Orleans got who that. The Packers got Go Pack Go, and the Cowboys got How About Them Cowboys. But as long as I live, we bleed blue and orange, baby. And we always got the best singing. Bear down, baby.
I hate Rob. No, I'm kidding. If you want to catch more of that from Rob Scott, you can check him out at Rob's 2 Cents or Tony Hollinsworth at Inside the Hoosier Mind. Check him out on TikTok, check him out on Twitter or X, Instagram, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcast. You can check me out on TikTok or Instagram at TheChi.Kid. Until then, we will be back in there like swimwear. Check us out on Welcome to Mars. We'll be back sometime this week. We will check you guys out later. Peace. Bear down, baby.
I love you.